Some dreams are nothing more than fleeting fragments of everyday life, but others open a door to the future. In 1999, an unknown illustrator in Japan published a strange little manga that quietly chronicled 15 prophetic dreams she claimed to have seen. One by one, those dreams began to come true. But the most terrifying part is this: the final dream hasn't happened yet. According to the book, it is foretold to take place at exactly 5 a.m. on July 5th, 2025. So what was in that dream? And why has it haunted readers for over 2 decades? Let's uncover the mystery in today's video. So, fasten your seatbelt as we dive into this eerie story. But first, if you like and subscribe before this video ends, they say your luck might just change. On July 1st, 1999, a mysterious comic book was released in Japan. Its title was simple, yet filled with quiet implication: The Future I Witnessed. At the time, no one paid much attention. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't drawn by a famous artist. And it had received no promotion in any media. In fact, even if someone had happened to pick it up and flip through it, all they would have seen were a series of bizarre dreams captured in pencil sketches, accompanied by a few handwritten notes in the margins. It looked like nothing more than a personal dream diary, brought to life with rough, almost chaotic illustrations. Some were obscure. Some were so cryptic, the meaning was nearly impossible to grasp. Then, more than a decade later, on March 11th, 2011, Japan was shaken by a catastrophic earthquake and tsunami that devastated the northeastern part of the country. Over 15,000 people lost their lives. Thousands more were reported missing. And the world watched in stunned silence as images of a modern, high-tech nation swallowed by the sea flashed across screens. In those dark days of confusion and fear, an old memory resurfaced, one that sent a shockwave across Japan's online communities. Someone remembered that strange little comic book, and when they opened it again, what they found left the public stunned. 12 years earlier, one of the pencil dreams had depicted a scene eerily similar to the 2011 disaster: seawater flooding city streets, tsunami waves crashing far inland, and mysterious numbers like 311 written on the cover, as if trying to warn of something no one understood at the time. The coincidence was too strange, too specific, to ignore. Thousands of people began hunting down the comic. They examined every page, every sketch, every note in the margins, searching for clues, as if trying to follow a message from the future. Soon, they discovered something even harder to believe. The book contained 15 dreams in total. And by the public's count, 12 and a half of them had already come true. When The Future I Witnessed became the center of public attention in 2011, people had just one burning question: who was the author? All they had was a pen name: Mari Asaka. No background, no photo, no contact. Even the publishing house had no records left. In a world where almost nothing stays hidden for long, the fact that this person had remained completely anonymous for more than 20 years only deepened the mystery. As Mari Asaka's name spread across social media, so did impersonators. Dozens of fake accounts popped up claiming to be her. Some began releasing new so-called visions. Public opinion was split. Was it a hoax? Was Mari not a person, but a group? Or was she simply a puppet of some hidden force, planting ideas in people's minds? Then, in October 2023, just as the online buzz peaked, Mari returned. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't do interviews. Instead, she re-released the original manga. But this time it was different. The new edition featured full commentary, detailed explanations of each dream, the story behind them, and her personal journey. In that re-release, she revealed her true identity. Her real name is Marissa Ayres. She was born on December 2nd, 1954, in Kanagawa Prefecture. Today, she lives quietly in the port city of Yokohama. She described her childhood as unremarkable, just like millions of others who grew up in post-war Japan. She loved painting, enjoyed singing, and was dreamy and sensitive. But there was one thing that very few others had. Beginning at the age of 9, she started to see dreams that were unlike those of ordinary people. In these dreams, There was an old man with silver white hair, gentle eyes, and a slow, calm voice. He would often appear beside her and tell her about things that had not yet come past. They would talk in dreams, walking together under the moonlight, and the old man would whisper of things she would only come to understand many years later. The first dream that truly unsettled her came in 1976. It was a November night when Emily Dawson dreamed of a man singing beneath the bright glow of stage lights, only to suddenly collapse under that blurred and fading light. The crowd below gasped in shock, and she knew immediately who the man was. It was Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of the band Queen. In 1976, Freddie Mercury was at the peak of his career, his health vibrant, his voice echoing through stadiums across the world. To say he would die would have been no different than inviting ridicule from the public. But instead of brushing it off, Emily quietly sketched the dream and carefully recorded it in her journal. 15 years later, on November 24th, 1991, the world was shaken by the news. Freddie Mercury had passed away. Television broadcasts aired special reports. Newspapers printed his image on their front pages. And when Emily opened her old journal, she could hardly believe what she saw. It was the first time she felt afraid of herself, afraid that dreams were no longer just dreams. And when she turned on the TV, what sent a deeper chill down her spine was not the news of Freddie's death itself, but a piece of documentary footage showing fans preparing to make a biographical film in his memory. In her 1976 journal, there had been a small frame, a simple drawing of a film crew shooting a scene about a deceased artist. The resemblance was disturbingly precise. Emily tried to convince herself that it was all just an uncanny coincidence, but deep down, she knew. Coincidences that perfect are rarely accidental. From that point on, her dreams began to arrive more regularly, and they started to come true according to a strange pattern of time. Some would unfold 5 years later, some 10, and some exactly 15 years from the moment they were seen. She began documenting everything, leaving no detail behind. The setting, the sounds, the colors, the names, the time, and even the emotional sensations that accompanied them. Another dream occurred on August 31st, 1992. She saw herself walking down a long corridor with light pouring in through towering windows. At the end of the corridor hung a painting of a blonde woman holding a child. The word Dana was written across the canvas. And in the very next moment, there was a blinding light, the sound of metal crashing, and the cries of many people. 5 years later, on August 31st, 1997, the world was once again stunned. Princess Diana had died in a car crash in Paris. And once again, Emily's journal had recorded the moment years earlier, captured in simple sketches so vivid they were haunting. From 1995 onward, the prophetic dreams became more frequent, and they began to touch on matters of far greater scale. Natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, and geological upheavals beyond the control of humankind. And it was because of this growing urgency that she began to draw the book that the world would one day search for again. The Future I Saw. On a winter night in 1995, Emily dreamed of the old man with silver hair once again. In the dream, he led her to a strange land where the ground had split open and the air was thick with the choking scent of stone dust. Emily awoke in the middle of the night with an uncanny sense of foreboding. The next morning, she opened her journal and carefully recorded the date of the dream, January 2nd, 1995. She then sketched the scene of a devastated landscape and, beneath it, wrote a single line of note. Something will rupture in 15 days. And exactly 15 days later, on January 17th, 1995, the Great Hanshin earthquake, also known as the Kobe earthquake, struck. Nearly 6,500 lives were lost. Tens of thousands of homes collapsed, and Japan, a country built on order and resilience, was left frighteningly exposed to the sheer force of nature. In that moment, Naomi no longer doubted. She could no longer convince herself that what she was seeing was mere coincidence. She believed, with certainty, that the future was sending her signals. with the conviction that these warnings were not meant to remain locked away within the pages of a private journal. Naomi began compiling the dreams she had documented over many years. Then, she officially published the manga titled The Future I Saw. But what left many people puzzled was this. Immediately after the book's release in 1999, Naomi disappeared once again. And perhaps the story would have ended there, had it not been for one more dream. A dream so vivid, so urgent, that it compelled her to break more than 2 decades of silence. On a July night in 2021, Naomi awoke with a start. Her breathing was rapid. Cold sweat clung to her forehead. She had dreamed of standing alone in a vast field of water, beneath a sky the color of ash, where no sunlight shone. The sea south of Japan began to bubble. Then, from the depths of the ocean, 2 enormous dragons emerged, twisting and writhing as though they were tearing at the Earth's crust. Then came the sound of an explosion, and then silence, as the land was swallowed whole. She realized that this dream was the continuation of an older vision from 1999. But this time, it was far clearer and far more violent. The repetition was impossible to ignore. She could not remain silent any longer. And so, in 2023, Naomi re-released her book in a more complete edition, one that included new dreams and, most importantly, a warning. A warning about a looming catastrophe that had not yet come, but was drawing ever closer. In that dream, she stood at an immense height, so high that she could see the entire expanse of the sea south of Japan spread out beneath her like a living 3-dimensional map. At first, the ocean was unnervingly calm, but within moments, massive pockets of air began to rise from the ocean floor, bubbling up like enormous cauldrons churning beneath the Earth's crust. It was the unmistakable sign of an underwater volcano on the verge of erupting. But what she could never forget, what had seared itself in her memory, was the emergence of 2 enormous dragons. They twisted beneath the water's surface, gradually forming into shape from the edges of the scene. They moved silently, coiling around the center of the rising bubbles, as if guarding something hidden beneath. And then, in an instant, a massive column of water burst from the sea, tearing through the sky and unleashing a tsunami beyond anything the human mind could imagine. Naomi stood frozen, unable to move, as the waves, 3 times taller than those of the 2011 disaster, came crashing toward the shore, dragging with them clouds of dust, vehicles, buildings, and millions of people. She could not remember how she breathed during that dream. All she knew was that, after the wave, a new land began to rise. It surfaced slowly from the water, like an ancient being waking from a slumber that had lasted for thousands of years. Wet soil churned upward, stone heaving into jagged forms, rugged, raw, and untouched. And in that moment, Naomi knew with certainty that this new land would connect Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines into one continuous landmass. In chaos, most people think only of endings. But in Naomi's dream, the end carried with it a beginning, a new chapter, one that humanity neither expected nor prepared for, yet could not refuse. And what made the dream all the more chilling was this. Naomi had seen the exact date it would happen. It was written clearly, 5 a.m., July 5th, 2025. Perhaps she understood that many would doubt her, that some would laugh, dismissing it as superstition. But she also knew this. If among the millions who read these words only a small number believed and prepared, then, if the dream were ever to come true, the loss might not be as great. To some, Naomi's dream was nothing more than an expression of excessive anxiety. But to those who had followed her chain of predictions since the 1970s, one thing was clear. What Marissa saw in her dreams should not be dismissed lightly. And so, after the reissue of her book, especially with its stark warning about the rise of a new continent in 2025, the biggest question was this. Could such a thing actually happen? To many people's surprise, the answer is yes. While the probability is low, it remains entirely possible, at least in theory. Japan lies within a geological region known as the Pacific Ring of Fire, where several tectonic plates converge. It is also the area with the highest density of underwater volcanoes in the world. These tectonic plates are not stationary. They shift inch by inch, year by year. They generate earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and sometimes they give birth to new land. In 2013, just 1,640 feet off the coast of Japan's Nishinoshima Island, an underwater volcano quietly erupted. A small island appeared, one that had never existed on any map. Within just a few months, the island expanded rapidly and eventually merged with the main island, doubling Nishinoshima's overall size. Another similar event occurred in 2021 in the Kuril Islands, a disputed territory between Japan and Russia. There, an underwater volcano suddenly erupted without warning. When meteorological experts arrived by helicopter to inspect the site, they discovered that a new island had formed. These events, though modest in scale, serve as proof that what Marissa described in her visions was not entirely implausible. And so, we return to her 2021 dream, the one in which Marissa saw two massive dragons twisting beneath the sea. If we set aside the symbolic imagery for a moment, many researchers have pointed out a compelling detail. The position of the two dragons in Marissa's drawings closely matched the location of two major tectonic plates beneath the Pacific Ocean, the Philippine Sea Plate and the Pacific Plate. It is precisely at the intersection of these plates that the likelihood of underwater volcanic eruption is greatest. And if the conditions were just right, such an eruption could indeed push the seafloor upward, forming entirely new stretches of land. If there is one dream that left Marissa gasping for breath, not from fear, but from a deep, haunting sense of loss, it was the dream she experienced in the late 1990s. She wrote about it in her journal, but many years passed before she admitted she had never been ready to reveal it to the world. Not because she feared skepticism, but because she was terrified people would be utterly powerless to stop what was coming. In that dream, a thunderous sound erupted from deep within the earth, so powerful that she felt her spine shudder, even in sleep. It was a sound like an ancient roar, as if the crust of the earth were splitting open. She awoke within the dream. The clock before her read exactly 5 o'clock. Yet there was no way to tell if it was 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Marissa stepped outside her home and found nothing was intact. The roads were split open. Tall buildings had their lower floors ripped apart, as though an invisible force had torn concrete blocks straight from the ground. Cars were overturned, awnings had collapsed, and power lines flickered like ghostly veins in a lifeless city. She saw a massive bridge spanning a river, but half of it had vanished. There was no one around. The street before her was desolate, and when Marissa looked down, she realized she was no longer standing on solid ground. Before her and behind her stretched nothing but water. At the very instant she awoke, she felt as if everything had come to an end. When The Future I Saw was reissued, Marissa included a handwritten note beneath this dream. I'm not sure whether this scene was the 2011 earthquake or not. What I witnessed was far more terrifying. I was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, even though March in Japan is still bitterly cold. That very detail, her wearing a short-sleeved shirt, sent chills down the spine of many readers. The 2011 tsunami happened in winter, yet her dream carried the traits of summer. And in 2025, the event she foresaw was, indeed, set during the summer season. You may not believe in dreams. You may even think the future is something no one can ever truly glimpse in advance. But if there was anything in this story that made you pause, even for just a moment, feel free to share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them and explore deeper with you into the mysteries we have yet to fully understand. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you again in the next video.